and warm welcome to kind of one of the most hot topic that I feel before you guys are all waiting for the lunch, right? It can be taken as an appetizer before you go for lunch. And from the morning, we have heard many of our colleagues and friends, they spoke about how Gen AI, agentic AI are disrupting the data engineering. So with that, and that's the place where we are actually going to go more double click that whether, we all know that it's actually disrupting, but what about, can it be completely automated? Can Gen AI or agentic AI will completely disrupt the end-to-end data engineering lifecycle, or there obviously will be some human intelligence, there will be human dependencies that will always be there. So that's our topic, and with that, what I kind of request my panels, right? I will go with Anirban first to share his experience about automation, how he feels that how the automation has really changed in the data engineering from last 1 or 2 decades, and what are the new changes in the automation that he is using in his organization. So that should be the first topic which I will request Anirban to throw some lights.
Thank you, Sougata. So, interestingly, when we started our journey, when I started my journey, in terms of automation, there was nothing much. It was all about putting everything out there as what you could say a brute force code. Even for data, you have to go and ask people that do you have the right set of data with you, and then assist them to understand their data structures, get it into place, and then use all your intuition and all your understanding to create the models and all of it. So it was all kind of manual when I started the journey. Now, over a period of time, what seen is that in last couple of years and even 10 years, lot of automation that has come, at least in the integration space. Now, you have a data source, you have connectors, a lot of automation has happened to get that data from those connectors. When you get that data, then how do you, sieve through that, look at the quality. There are a lot of automation that is happening at the space where I'm working now, where the data quality and the gaps in the data is kind of, we are addressing using a lot of tools and automations. So that is one advancement that is happening. We are using it on a continual basis. And recently what we have started to see is the use of agents to not just collect the data, cleanse the data, but also look at models. I will also probably, at some point in time, we will talk about how generative AI is getting into the space and changing the entire mechanism in which the ERDs and stuff gets created automatically. So the agents are at play now, right from the collection of data, creating some of the curation of the data, finding out gaps in it, even helping you with structures of governance, right? So all of this is something that I'm currently seeing and also using. And also at the same time, I'm a student of it, of data engineering and data science all my life, so learning also the new things that is now coming up, which was not there when I started my journey. Right?
Perfect. Thanks, Anirban. So that means like the shift already started, right? From the traditional automations to more Gen AI and agentic AI-wise automation, right? So
yeah,
that shift started.
It has definitely started, and I feel that it is here to stay.
Okay,
right.
Thank you. So now I'll go to Sambit, and again, we'll request him to share that what he feels and what he is doing in his organization about automation.
You can hear me? Okay. I'll just go back to 20 years back. 20 years back, data engineering was all about ETL, right? People has very less amount of data. They were just trying to find out, bring in the data, put it into a place, and if you can do a daily report, that was like deja vu. Right? 2005, when I was doing Walmart data architecture, 60 terabyte data, when I looked at 60 terabyte data, I had no idea how to handle those kind of data. There was no real technology tools available at that point of time. Right? Here we are, 2025. At MakeMyTrip, we handle about 8 to 10 terabyte of data every day. Right? So that's the scale. The scale has changed significantly. And what's the business dynamics here? So when if you ask business, they will say, we are a B2C organization. For us, everything got to be real time, right? And then they'll talk about you need to build a system which is scalable, right? And where we cannot really define this schema, and everything has to be observable, right? So that's your fundamental three characteristics which business is talking about to you, right? You build systems. I don't know what will be the system look like, but it need to satisfy that it need to be scalable, observable, and it has to be real time. When I say real time, at MakeMyTrip, we compute about 100 different user-specific metrics every 15 minutes. So my on-ramp, off-ramp runs on all of those kind of data, right? And we are talking about booking information. I will exactly get to know that Bombay to Delhi, every 15 minutes, I am supposed to do X number of booking, and the number, if the number drops, we'll exactly get to know number has dropped, and these are the correlation pattern, why it could have been, and is there is an intervention required or not required, right? That's why we are sitting. So what has changed? Fundamentally, a lot of automation has changed, definitely, right? One of the biggest part of the automation is basically data. A lot of our data is structured, so in that way, you really don't have to worry about, missing data and, data out of bound and all of those things. But one data basically go through hundreds of schemas, right? Because I'm doing minute compute and all of those things. So dynamic, schema mapping, calculations, running function on top of it, because it's not like 5 set of engineer who is writing the data functions, right? Anybody can write a data function, drop it, and my compute need to run on part of it, right? And the bigger part of it is basically the anomaly detection part of it, right? How do I run my anomaly detection? The problem with anomaly detection is it's too much of noise, either false positive, false negative. A lot of time, the causation is not the correlation is not a causation. Then how do I figure it out? What kind of guardrails I do that part of it, right? So if you really look at automation, everything that we do, how do you create orchestration using airflows, and what kind of data structure that we are going to look at, what kind of feature store that we are going to look at, how much of code we can generate, right? Practically, a lot of our code is get generated, right? And a lot of stuff that we do on top of AB, right? Anything which I can define as a function, mathematical function, is all automated, right? That's where we are right now.
Perfect. Thanks, Sambit. Now I'll come to Vikas. And Vikas, you are part of AMD, right? As part of the semiconductor, that is the more place where. But help to understand, right? Like, what automation exactly mean in your area from like the traditional automations, what we are doing there, and then how that change in the current world?
Thank you so much, Sougata. Yeah, hope you guys can hear me. As Sougata said, right? So we at AMD, right? I mean, we are one of the largest GPU vendors, and the way we sell GPUs is based on the solutions we sell on top of the GPUs, right? So that is nothing but we have a solution called ROCm, which is an open source solution. What does it mean is, I mean, that also houses a lot of models and everything else, but the biggest driver for those models is the training, right? And training comes with data. And the biggest automation change what we have seen in last 10 years, right? It could be, as one of the sessions which I was hearing, AI in data and AI in process and AI in insights, right? The data labeling and data annotation makes a big part of our journey, in which we train the model with the labeled data, in which labeling the data itself was a huge thing, and annotation and everything else, right? And if I take you back to around 2015 or sometime, where just before joining AMD, we're working on autonomous cars, and we had this driver monitoring systems where the human being, the face has to be annotated, and that used to be a laborious process. But fast forward 2025, now we have automated the whole sort of whole of annotation and labeling, and that enables us to sort of improve the efficiency and the kind of productivity we have gone in terms of either failing fast or doing a POC quickly on a particular model increases by multifold. That's on the AI data part. And look at the process part, right? I mean, gone are the days where we're only talking about DevOps. Now we have gone into the areas of DevSecOps and MLOps, where we need to ensure that all these data pipelines which are needed for training and inferencing has to be continuously monitored, and we need to have alerting mechanism and sort of diagnose themselves and fix it proactively. Probably we'll come to those points when we talk about self-healing architectures, but that was one of the areas where we have got a lot of automation in terms of pipeline monitoring and data ingestion to our training and inferencing segment. So that way, coming 2015, it was completely manual and laborious and not very productive. 2025, fast forward, we have automated sort of all of AI. We have brought data AI, we have brought AI into the process, and we have also brought AI into the insights, and which will give us some kind of monitoring dashboards, which will help us to make sure we are doing the model training and inferencing pretty quicker.
Okay. So what we heard from all our panelists, that there are automations happening, right? That automation used to happen in the past, and automation is happening today, and automation will continue to happen in future, right? But let's now try to understand from them, right? Like, because of this shift that are happening in the automation journey, right? How the roles are changing. We will want to get into a more detailed deep dive with our panelists to understand how the data engineers' roles are evolving, whether data engineers are getting replaced completely or we still need data engineers with a shift in the role. And also we try to understand from our panelists that what they think about the future in respect to how we are going to shift in more on the data engineering things, right? So with that, again, I will go to Anirban. And we heard from Anirban that currently there are lots of automation happening. But Anirban, my question to you is that we know that data engineers used to build pipelines. That is one of the main core functionality of data engineers, right? So they used to build the whole pipeline from the data ingestion, and then they establish the data quality, they ensure the consumptions layer having the right data. So in the current world, what you see is that role shifted from doers, where we need engineers to really build those pipelines, or the engineers are required to oversee the pipeline, to govern the pipeline. So how you like, what's your reflection on that part?
Yeah, see, there's no easy answer to that, right? It is little nuanced. It depends on what kind of maturity in your data lifecycle your organization is, right? If you are a very mature organization and you have put all the tools and guardrails and governance structures and everything in place, then your data engineer is not just executioner, right? He would have moved into the role of a data steward or a data governance guy, right? If you're at a lower end of maturity, you would still be doing a lot of those doer kind of, executioner kind of activity, but at the same time, you would also be doing a lot of this data stewardship and governance kind of activity. So when I say that, what it means is, even if you use a lot of automation, the end result of that what kind of ingestions it is doing, what kind of transformation it is making and realizing, right? That has to be looked at by a human. So often what we refer to as human in the loop, right? So the data engineer is now becoming more of a guy who is a custodian of all that is happening around in the data landscape. Plus, there is a big area where there's a lot of relevance, and this is where the data engineers also needs to graduate, is managing the entire complexity of the landscape, right? There's so much of tools, platforms, technologies that are available. How do you make sure that you make a prudent choice of what to use? Because there are a lot of dimensions, even in terms of time quadrant, right? And the cost angle to it. If you put an entire data pipeline and data architecture in place, what is the cost that will be involved in terms of what you choose, right? So architectural choices, the overall design, that is something which is not going away. I mean, and that is where I think the value will get added more, not at the bottom of the pyramid, I mean, where it is all about automation and executing the thing, but in terms of architecture, governance, stewardship, a lot of standards and governance frameworks that are coming up, like your GDPR and AI Act and all of that, right? How do you make sure that your enterprise, your entire data landscape is compliant with that? Those are the things where the role of the data engineer, according to me, is kind of shifting.
So to you, is like the repetitive work can get automated or will be automated, should be automated,
That's
right?
an
But we don't need the
eventuality.
data engineers at that level of skills. But still the governance, the compliance, the regulatory, bringing multiple tools, what tools should be, so that advisory might still require a data engineer's role is shifting towards more advisory and consulting instead of doers, right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
So with that, Sambit, I'll come to you about, we heard AI is like kind of driving lots of autonomous decisions. It can take decisions by itself. So do you feel in the whole the life cycle of data engineering, we have data governance, data quality, and we used to do anomaly detections on those using data quality, right? But do you feel that AI is still mature enough to understand all the various business context, the changes in the rules? Like for an example, suddenly there is a change in the tariff that has happened, right? So how the automations of leveraging AI along with the business context should come into more data quality and data governance? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So what fundamentally AI does, AI has tremendous capability to process information at scale, identify patterns, right? Spot patterns, and based on that, probably tell you what is the next big action or insight, right? That's exactly what it is doing, right? There is no real decision making happening. It is simply pattern. It is no different like if you take a 5-year old boy and you throw a ball, very unlikely you will catch it up, right? But if you do 100 times, you'll find the boy started catching it up, 8 out of 10 times, and probably after 3 months he's probably catching all 10 out of 10 times. Does he really learn the physics, the curvatures, the speed, the what is your terminal velocities and all of those things, and they are applying and catching it? No, not necessarily, right? He's simply applying. From his previous experience, he has captured some insight, and based on that insight, he's taking action, and there is a reinforcement learning happening, and that's exactly how the boy has learned, and AI is no very different from that, right? So if you can construct anything to a formula, I think you don't need developers. And two things, right? One is basically you should be able to construct, you should be able to verify, right? So I know 2 plus 2, as long as I see an answer 4, I'm fine, right? So that means when you are doing your data engineering, you need to make sure that your feedback loop is closed. So if you have 100 use cases that need to run, test case need to run, it is running. As long as this test case is matched, you're fine, right? That there is no observability, nothing is required on top of it. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, there is no context, right? So you have defined a schema where you're saying customer ID is not null, right? Integer, right? So it can have any value, and suddenly you see a customer, not customer ID, customer age, and you see a customer age with 150. It is probably anomalies, but it doesn't really understand that a person age cannot be 150. It cannot reason out, right? And it cannot reason out a 150 person health insurance probably is not available, or it will be 10x of a 20-year guy, right? It has no reasoning. It probably just saying anomaly is part of it, right? So as long as you are doing pure anomaly detection, there is no problem. But it has no real business context, right? Looking at a revenue number, it cannot take, this is the top line of the organization, because there is no context, right? So, and data engineering is not about build, right? How typically a data project start? Data projects start with a, business strategy, right? Fundamentally, if you go to TOGAF, you talk about business strategy, data architecture, application architecture, and all that part of it, right? It start with a business strategy, what exactly we want to solve, what kind of insight we want to build. There is some hypothesis, then you figure it out, what kind of data I'll really look at, do I have the data, I need to build some system to capture the data, right? Lot of those discussions happen, and there are a lot of underlying motivations, whether it is political, social, that needed to be handled. So there is a lot of trade-off discussion happens before you build it. And once you come into an architecture, you are trying to figure it out, whether it's an enterprise architecture, whether it's a large scale, whether it's a small business unit, try to play something out, right? All of architectural decision, your AI is not going to do that for you, right? And none of your business strategy, your AI is going to do that part of you, right? Once you laid that things out, your tool selection AI is not going to do that for you. Once you figure that out, now I am in a phase where I want to test it out, implement it out, start creating a pipeline, store it and validate part of it. That's the build part of it, right? So what we talk about build part of it. All of those build you can, it is code. End of the day, it is code, and there is already a lot of knowledge base already been created, and I can look up into those knowledge base and create, irrespective of the language, right? That is fully automated. Your job is to create the closed loop. You know what is the use case, test case that you need to run. You need to figure it out, how do I stitch together my test case and figure it out whether my test case is running, if the test case is running. So your job is to make sure you create those guardrail, create those domain, because there is a lot of places where you'll create false positives, suppress those part of it, right? Create the pipeline, create those test cases. And that's your job. And that is probably much important job than actually creating the pipeline part of it, right? That means you will have a lot more time to actually go and solve large business problem rather than actually stitching the last mile.
Got it.
That's how that's how I see the actual career progression is going to happen.
Okay, great, Sambit. So what I understood is that there obviously the business logic, the domain context is very imperative, very important, and while AI can still be kind of be a catalyst where we can keep on fine-tune the models, we can kind of self-reflect the models, but there will be some advisory that we need to keep on provide to the AI so that they can understand this context and they can self-heal and achieve the goal, right? Okay. Thank you. So I'll come to Vikas, right? Like with the what Anirban and Sambit mentioned about the pipelines and the quality governance, right? There is another word which is coming very frequently nowadays. It's called autonomous architecture, which is called self-healing kind of architecture, right? So can you just help us to kind of make us understand, right, what exactly the autonomous data architecture looks like? And can it be really a self-heal from the ingestion, from the quality, from the governance? Can everything be kind of self-driven? Can you throw some lights on that?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at a typical architecture, right? I mean, that largely the layers you can see is you have to detect whether the pipelines are running or not, properly, and then you have to diagnose if there are any issues with the pipelines, and then probably you have to respond or maybe mitigate it, right? These self-healing data architectures, I mean, it is not fully mature yet, but there are a lot of efforts being done towards to make sure we sort of automate some of the layers at least in this self-healing architectures. Say, for example, detecting, right? I mean, one is monitoring and alerting, wherein you can look at the pipelines and see, if there are any anomalies, if there's something going wrong with the pipeline, and some of those aspects of data monitoring kind of a thing can be automated, and that's where the self-healing architecture comes into picture, and sort of there are a lot of tools today, right, where in terms of Monte Carlo or Big Eye, where you have monitoring and alerting systems, right? once you detect those kind of a things, I mean, you have to diagnose and root cause, because it can't be just you detected something and, of course, I think there was a discussion point about human in loop kind of a thing, right? And of course, there is an aspect of where human in loop has to come into picture, and where sort of, you can't be automating everything else, right? Having said that, so there are ways to, the diagnosing part, the root causing part is still not that mature. There is still, it is like, there's a bit of a human, there's a bit of a logging mechanism, and then probably before applying the root cause, the responding part of it, right? So you cannot go and respond and sort of fix the issue. There could be issues in terms of governance, it could be issues of ethical governance, I should say. There could be a lot of data outliers, which are, when an automated AI can try to fix it, but it may not be falling under the policy, that may actually go fix it, where we are actually trading off the quality to the uptime. We want to make sure the architecture is always up and running, but what if you just make sure it is up and running, but what about the security aspects? What about the GDPR aspects? And what about the compliance aspects? So the self-healing architecture, it is, it is sort of going at a fast pace, but we are not there yet. But there is a need for a lot of guardrails in terms of we need to bring in so that all this self-healing architecture do not go overboard and sort of put a lot of fixes or anything else, right? If you look at the human intervention and auditability, you should be able to audit why this particular fix was done. Is it for this particular use case, this user story, or is it for a particular policy, right? If you take as one thing fits all kind of a thing and start fixing and mitigating the issues. So we need some guardrails like this, where you should be able to audit, you should be able to explain why this particular fix was added, and we need to have human intervention, and we also need to have some kind of a governance so that with these guardrails, we can become more of a AI literate architects, AI literate engineers, than of allowing everything to AI to do, right? So that's where there is there's always a trade-off between how much you want to automate and how much you want to give it as a human in loop kind of a thing. So I think it is still maturing, but probably you will see maybe another 3 to 5 years from now, probably to 70 to 80% maybe self-healing, but there is still a lot of a lot of aspects has to be figured out, wherein all the task levels can be automated and self-healing, but as the panelists were saying, right, there are a lot of policy-driven things which need to be taken care of.
Okay. So with that same context, right, like what I heard that it's real. There are self-healing architecture is the concept is going on. We are making it real with some guardrails, with some audits, and it will get more mature, right? But tell me, like Vikas, did that mean that we are kind of AI is democratizing the whole data engineering space, right? Because what we are saying now, it will be a low code, no code, like zero ETL, right? The architecture can be scaled, auto scaled by themselves, right? So what I'm trying to understand more is about, like now even a non-data engineer can manage a whole data platform, right? So do you feel that that's the democratization is really happening now?
Yeah, that's a good point. With this advent of all the Gen AI and everything else, right? So there is, of course, entire not only data engineering for that matter, everything is getting democratized, where everybody has access to all this chatbots and Hex and chat GPTs and everything else, right? Where there is a lot of democratization happening across other landscapes, but coming to a data engineering part of it, right? There is sort of a divide is getting created in terms of tool users and tool creators. The way it is democratizing the whole data engineering aspect is, look at data analysts or business analysts, where it actually helps them to sort of input some of the user stories to LLMs and probably come up with some kind of a generate the code and probably do a quick POC, and they could fail fast. In that way, it is giving access to a lot of non-engineers who could try things and do quick POCs and make sure that whatever the idea they had, they could test it and fail fast, or if it works, they could go ahead, right? So that way, it is giving access to data analysts, business analysts, business users, product managers. There are cases where a lot of my product managers have a couple of engineers in their teams. They actually get access to these LLMs and sort of do a quick POC, and even without coming to our engineering team, they sort of figure it out themselves. So that way it is democratizing, but there is a clear divide between tool users and tool creators. What I mean by that is the fact that the tool is so easy to use and everything happens magically, that you query a question and everything sort of comes out. You have a code snippet, you have a test case, and everything magically happens under the hood, right? The fact that it is so easy, that means it is quite complex under the hood. So that means that there's a clear divide between who creates the tool and who creates the user. On one aspect, there's a democratization between how the data is used and data engineering is getting into, but the engineering is sort of should move into understanding the complexity of the whole tool creation under the hood. So that way, I would say it is democratized, but there is a clear divide between the users and the creators. And coming years, I guess more of the data engineers should focus on how do we ensure that the complexity is sort of is reduced, and they could make sure it could percolate down to more users of data engineering. So I think that's what I believe. You getting access to the tool is good, but there's a clear divide between the creators and the users.
Okay. Thanks, Vikas. So we are almost on the time, but I'll still go with the panels for kind of 30 seconds to 1 minute on your kind of reflection about what really cannot get automated. So I'll go to Sambit, and if you can just spend 30 seconds and help us know that we all discuss about the automation, right? And we are all saying that future we will do more automation. But do you think anything which can't be automated at all?
I think we briefly spoke about the upstream activities, business strategy, architecture, a cool design cannot be automated. And a lot of data products, we speak, we generate code. But the most beautiful data products are those which are most optimized, right? Because of the velocity and the volume of the data. And the quality of the code that you can write, if you have the experience, cannot be substituted through a machine. Because machine will try to write a very generic pattern of that code part of it. That still cannot be automated. And any organizational politics cannot be automated. That needed to be factored, right? And that's a big part when you are actually a data engineer.
Okay, thank you. I'll come to Anirban. What's your closing statement on that?
Yeah, so I talked about the policy frameworks and, of course, the governance angle, right? To me, I don't see it getting automated anytime soon, because obviously there are political angles to it. There is context of a country handling that data context. Those are there. So, for example, the same query, if you fire in India and you fire in Pakistan, based on the recent events, what has happened, you will see different kind of results. And if you exchange the results in the two countries, the effects that you'll have in the societies also would be really funny. Okay. Or scary, right?
Yep.
So those are the things in terms of governance and stuff. I think that is something which is not going to get automated.
Or we might need to mature on more of responsible AI, ethical AI, right? So that the responsible AI needs to be matured much more to actually get into that kind of automation. But
yeah, ethical AI and ethical, practices, that is something, or machine ethics, that is something which is not going to get automated. Yeah.
Thank you, Anirban. So I'll go to Vikas for your last closing statement.
I'll make it quick. I think time is up, I guess. But yeah, what can be automated? What could be replaced by automation? If you look at anything, right, it's like three parts, how, what, and why. The way I look at it, the how part, the execution, the low-level mundane tasks can be automated, and that's happening today. And the what and why part is where still needs a lot of scope for automation. So that's where I would request all of data engineers to look into the architecture and sort of a thing, and sort of least focus on the automation part of it, right? And because all code generation, writing test cases can be automated, and it is getting done. We are doing it every day as we speak. So focus on what and why, because how is taken care already. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks to AIM for giving us the opportunity to have a great discussion. I'm not sure, like we are already time sharp. Do we have time for a few questions? We don't, okay? So if you guys have any questions to the panelists, feel free to ask those questions outside. They're all available and they're happy to kind of provide more response and more detailed response to it. Thank you very much.